Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Please join me in welcoming our next speaker, Evan. Evan.
Hey, thanks. I just spilled my coffee on the floor. Yeah, I'm Evan. I'm an alcoholic, and Merry Christmas to all. I'm glad to be here today and glad to be sober. I actually couldn't give a rat's ass about Christmas. I have no feeling. As a child, I didn't have good or bad Christmases. I was in a very non-religious home. We celebrated it. It was fun. I grew up and I never really thought about it. So it's never been a big issue for me. It's weird. The house I grew up in was so crazy. The holiday that my mother couldn't take was the 4th of July. And every 4th of July, she would plunge into this depression where she would have to lock herself in her bedroom and chain smoke Pall Malls and drink and sob uncontrollably. And I grew up in an alcoholic home. I like AA because I've always been an alcoholic, as far as I know. And let me just say that everything here that I share here is my opinion. I'm not an authority on AA at all. I was fired by a sponsor last year because he didn't agree with what I was working on or something like that. And but I love alcoholics, and and the anonymity principle that we have here was made for somebody like me, because when I got sober, I feel, as an alcoholic, I have problems with humility. I feel better than other people. I feel alcoholics, in my heart, I feel we're better than even a drinking alcoholic to an extent. I would rather be around than a sober normie. Normies don't interest me, except that I do have so-called normie friends now. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. And I got sober this time around 8 years and 7 months and 4 days ago. And I have to say this time around, because I was exposed to not just AA, but other programs from a young age. When I was a kid, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in the suburbs. Professional parents, like they were professionals. They weren't professional parents. And they, we grew up out in the country, kind of. We used to run around. I always liked to set things on fire and smash things and blow things up. I was a neighborhood vandal, which was a lot of fun for me. And I started drinking at a young age. My parents believed that alcohol should be served in the home to children. It's a very good theory, because they said, hey, in Europe, they feed, wine, like the French kids drink wine, I guess, in their homes. Not that my parents would actually know, since they'd never been to Europe, but they would say, in Europe, they feed wine to children, so we'll do that in our house. And when they did that in our house, my earliest memories of alcohol are getting really sick, blacking out, family gatherings. So I don't even know when I had my first drink. And by the time I was 12, there was a lot of turmoil in my family's house, and I turned into this wild kid, and I was kicked out of schools, and I was doing lots of drugs. It was the 1977, 78 time frame, and my school actually sent me to a program that had been started by an AA person. It was like a rehab, and this was my first experience with sobriety. I was sent to a rehab. I was 13 when I was sent to this first rehab on June 10th, 1978. And this rehab what they did is they started, run by a sober former member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and what they did is they kept us awake for 24 hours at a time, and used a lot of physical punishment, and it was completely insane. And I was in this program for many months until the local papers did an expose on it, literally, and they had to shut down. And so having gone through that is my first brush with somebody who had been in AA. I thought people in AA were just con artists like this guy was. But having gone through this kind of, to me, a scary experience, I determined that I would never get caught, that I would never lose control of my drinking, that I would never have another person be able to tell me I can't drink. And I was already, I was like 14 when I was thinking this. So I became a really good alcoholic starting, in my teenage years. I learned how to drink alone when I needed to. I learned I didn't get DUIs later on because I actually wouldn't drive sometimes if I was really drunk, because I didn't want my right to drink alcohol taken away from me. And I went through, 10 years, 15 years after that experience, where I went through college, I drank heavily, a blackout drinker. In starting my early 20s, I started accumulating a lot of scars on my body. I have scars here and all over my head and parts of my body from either just blacking out and like tumbling over in streets or getting beat up in bars. I went to school near New York. I was from Ohio, and then I moved to New York, and I was never in a bar fight. I was just beat up, and I would mouth off to somebody really drunk, and often I wouldn't remember it the next day. And I just lived like that. I got married. I married a woman who wasn't much of a drinker at all, because when I married her or moved in with her, I thought, hey, if I'm with somebody who doesn't drink, she can sort of balance me out. And I was with her for 6 or 7 years. And when I left her, I was like, I can't stand being with a person who doesn't drink, because I want to be able to drink with someone, Maybe then I'll be... And I was starting to get, in my mid to late 20s, I was starting to think my life... I stopped working in my mid-20s. I lived off my wife, because I was so neurotic by then, I couldn't handle a job. I developed all these other issues. I had panic attacks, or I had a fear of I never actually had one, but I saw like ads for panic attack medicine or something, and I thought I was going to develop those. So if we were out socializing, this is when I was married, and like a bunch of couples wanted to get into a car together and drive to the restaurant, I had to sit by the door, because I was convinced that at some moment it might require me to just start screaming and jump out of the car. And that's how I was a real mental basket. Is that the right phrase? And not even that old, and covered with scars, and I almost, I just almost died several times, and I knew I was an alcoholic, but I wanted power over it, and I kept going, and so I left my wife because I didn't want to stop drinking, but I thought maybe if I'm with an alcoholic woman who understands how to drink, then I can control it better. So I tried that for a while, and this led to a very serious suicide attempt. It's funny because I actually told the story once, and this guy was like, that wasn't a very serious suicide attempt, and I got really mad, and I was like, no, it was. I cut the gas lines in my house, and I took pills and drank and tried to gas myself, and I say that it's a weird thing, because at the time, through all of this, I didn't think I was depressed, and with that experience with the suicide attempt, it baffled me the next day, because I was like, I hadn't thought about suicide before, and I did this in a semi-blackout. I would just do these crazy things in blackouts. It had always been that way since I was a kid. And so to sort of sum up to where I started to get sober the next time around, my wife had forced me, not forced me, but to buy some time, like to sort of buy her off. I went to some meetings for a period, but that didn't take. I left her, was with somebody else. We had a very stormy relationship, this alcoholic woman and I. And my last drink was, I got a job. I've always wanted to be, starting as a kid, I always read a lot. Had a big fan. I think some alcoholics, we have big fantasy lives. I wanted to be a writer or a historian. I'd studied history in college, and then I wanted to be a writer, so I did that, but I was unsuccessful. Before I got sober, I got a job writing for a porn magazine, and that was my first job in many years. And it's a funny story, but actually for me, it was, I had a job with health benefits. I was writing for a living. It was a dream come true. And I was completely miserable, and I couldn't understand. And the girlfriend that I had left my wife for her. She was, in my opinion, she was really beautiful. She was really funny, and I couldn't understand why is it I have my dream job in the porn industry and this wonderful alcoholic pillhead girlfriend that we take pills together, we drink together, and and I'm miserable. And I'm making it sound superficial. I'd had a suicide attempt a year earlier. But I got 6 months on this job, and I passed the probationary period because it was run like a normal corporation where I worked. Personnel department, all that. I passed that, got my benefits, and I qualified for a vacation. And at this time in my life, I was really trying to control my booze. I was not drinking every day, every night. In fact, the weirdest thing is before I got sober was probably the time in my life since I was a child that I exercised the most control. I was only getting drunk 2 to 3 times a week in this period of time. I was smoking pot a lot because I was trying to compensate. And I went on this vacation with the girlfriend, and she was an alcoholic, I thought, but she accused me of being one, and I was trying not to drink. We flew back together from Hawaii, where we were. It was the first, I hadn't made money in years. We went to Hawaii, it was really cool, and we got into this huge fight on the airplane. Then I started yelling at the crew, and this was 96, before air rage was a big thing. But they almost arrested me, and I came back, and I remember, and we fought for 18 hours straight, this girl and I, and got back to my apartment still fighting. And I remember thinking, where is my life now? This is the best I can achieve. And when I say fighting, we were in a physical, she was hitting me with trying to hit me with a hammer. We were throwing each other around the apartment. It's if the cops come, and she was the physical aggressor in this, but I was if the cops come, I'm going to go to jail. And I'm a pornographer now, so that's not going to look good in court. And this is where I am. This is the best I can do. At the same time, like I said, I come from a family of alcoholics. I have this mother who became a lawyer, and she was bottoming out. It was a strange thing. I was aware of Alcoholics Anonymous in part because my brother and sister and I were trying to help our mother over the years, even though I was half drunk most of the time I was there dealing with these issues. But our mother, she kept almost dying, and she's now in a mental hospital. So I went to an AA. I looked up AA on my own after this return from this Hawaiian trip. I didn't get sent. I didn't have any DUIs at the time. I called up AA on my own, and I just was ready. I was ready for something else because I remember thinking, or maybe someone said this at an early meeting, I was the kind of person where if I went to your house, I would open up the medicine cabinet and just if it said, do not operate heavy machinery, I would take your pills. And I thought, I'll do AA in the same spirit. I don't believe in religion. I have a mistrust of groups and of alcoholics because of my childhood experience in what was actually a cult run by an AA person. But I'm so desperate, I'll try anything. And I went to an AA meeting. It was on Gateway at this church just south of Pico. But on the east side of the street, and I've never been to that meeting before or since. I believe it was a Thursday night. I came in, and there was like 5 older men, 2 of whom I think were wearing overalls, and it looked like they had nothing on underneath. And they were sitting in a circle, and I came late, which has been a long tradition of mine, and they were having like 11 minutes of silence. And this was a really hard experience because when I came into that meeting, I hadn't had a drink in like 24 hours or so, but I reeked of alcohol. I was jittery, and I was like, what am I doing in this room with these weird guys who appear to be wearing overalls and nothing else on, and they're silent. And you know, the language of the heart, something that if you're new, you'll hear people talk about. These guys, when they started speaking, I couldn't identify with a word they were saying. I thought they were just kind of like, I almost felt sorry for them. I was like, okay, nice meeting you guys had, hope you get better. And yet, there was something when I walked out of there that had connected with me. And it wasn't anything they said, wasn't anything I heard. They didn't have what I wanted. And I felt better. And I got a directory. And you know, and actually I should correct that, because there was a guy at that meeting who gave me a ride home. Because one of the things when I'd returned from Hawaii, I lost my car somehow. So I was still in this phase where I didn't know where my car was, and which is funny because it's so routine. Like for an alcoholic, like I don't know where my car is right now. I don't even know how I lost it because I was in some blackout when I lost it. As you see, I did drive drunk. I said I often didn't drive drunk, but you know, I have to catch. Every alcoholic, I think, has different versions of his story. This guy who gave me a ride home from that meeting, he was a young kid, and I mean, he was like 24, and he was really fired up on AA. And I thought, this guy is like a cult member, because I had been in an AA kind of cult when I was a kid. I mean, he was driving the exact speed limit, and he wouldn't swear. Like, I mean, he was really kind of, you know, he'd latched onto the program. And one thing he said to me was, he said, hey, anything you want in your life, he said, make a list, put it ahead of AA and as a list of importance, and see how quickly you lose it. And he said, put your girlfriend ahead of AA, see how quickly you lose her. Well, actually, I wanted to lose her at that time, so that was a bad argument. But I told him, I really want to be a writer. Even though I'm a pornographer now, I want to be a writer. And he said, put that ahead of AA. See how fast you lose that whole career, your career as a pornographer. And I was like, okay. So, but something about that logic hit home, because I've always been, you know, deep inside, although I'm lazy and cowardly to an extent, I've always have wanted to be an extremist. I mean, like, I've always wanted to be extremely committed to something. I just never got around to it. And I recognized in AA, as I started going to more meetings, and I recognized this great program where I could kind of become an extremist, but the bar is very low. Like, people started talking about, with the 3rd step, when I started studying the steps, you know, just be willing to turn your life over to a higher power. You know, and it's funny, we always talk about in AA, it's action, it's not thought. You don't think your way into better behavior, you act your way into better behavior. You know, AA can be very militant and hardcore in a way, but any time, which is about 80% of the time, I haven't done things properly or I've messed up, people are like, oh, that's all right, you know. So you get like the AA Nazi side where everyone's like, you got to do it this way, got to do this. Then I don't do it, and they're like, that's all right, you know, change, do better, it's a new day, whatever. So I love that about it. It's a program that was made for me. And when I went to, what I did in that first beginning is, after that weird meeting, I went to a few more meetings, and I was smoking pot at the time, and I met this guy at 26 and Broadway, who Andy, who some people might know in this room, and he was like, well, I told him I was smoking pot, and he didn't come out against it, except he said, you know, maybe you should just try not smoking it for a month. Bless you, and he said, you know, and if not, we'll refund your misery. And so I did, the salesmanship of the program worked. And in those early days, I remember this profound experience when I was really scared. I had to raise my hand and say, I'm an alcoholic. And at a meeting, and I remember feeling really good after I did that. And it was like this huge pressure just slid off of me. And I always think what happened is I had spent, I was like the kind of person where I said, I know I'm an alcoholic, starting when I was a kid. I'd be drunk and I'd be, some girl would be like, you shouldn't drink so much. I'd be like, I'm an alcoholic. But the one thing about the first step that I didn't understand was I admitted I was an alcoholic much of my life, but I thought I had control over alcoholism. And so I would say, I'm an alcoholic. I did like getting drunk too, by the way. I loved everything about it. I loved the smell of it, the taste. I loved hangovers even. I worked well on hangovers. But I thought I had control. And when I raised my hand at an AA meeting in some church somewhere in LA as an adult and said, I'm an alcoholic, that to me was an admission that just the action was an admission that I don't have control. I'm admitting it. And it felt really fucking good to just give up control. And, I'm just sort of jumping around here because I love those speakers who can go through like all 1 through 12 steps in like 5 minutes and relate it to their personal experience. I can't. But one of the other things that popped into my mind at a meeting early on is we were talking about the easier, softer way, and I remember thinking, I had thought that AA was where you sign a pledge almost, and then you have to not drink, and you have to go to all these horrible meetings, and you're denying yourself all this fun stuff that you had as an alcoholic. And I remember when I suddenly realized this is the easier, softer way. This is the easiest thing I've ever done. And in fact, with my family of alcoholics, there's a side to me. My mother, who's 73 or 74, and this woman is in a mental hospital. She was a judge. And they have told her, if you just tell us, just admit you're an alcoholic and you're willing to seek treatment, we will let you out of this lockdown ward. And she won't do it. And I often think, the reason I came into AA is I'm not as tough as some other alcoholics I know. I mean, I found the easier, softer way. I just couldn't handle it anymore. And the other thing that I heard at a meeting was freedom. This is freedom, and it is freedom. And it took me a while to understand that. But just to go ahead, I stopped smoking marijuana after 6 days. I came in on May 15th, 1996, stopped smoking, taking anything that affects me from I don't know what that saying is, but anything, if it makes you drowsy, I don't take it or drink it. Since the 21st. So it's been 8.5 years. I don't believe, I've had an insane life as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I changed my writing career. When I got sober, I had people who would say like, hey, you can't work in that porn industry anymore. You know what? I didn't listen to them. I found a sponsor who understood what I was doing. I needed to work. I hadn't worked really hard in years. I had that job. I went to another job. I became a war correspondent and spent a lot of time in the Middle East as a sober alcoholic. I've been to many countries where there's no meetings. And I've learned how to work a program when I'm the only alcoholic that I know of. I talk to people. And to me, those were the promises, because I always wanted to travel and those weren't, no, you know what, those weren't actually, the promises to me were some form of emotional stability. And I got a relationship with a higher power, which is amazing for a sort of atheist. That was the promise, those were the promises, and all the rest of the emotional stuff, all the inside stuff. traveling and being a war correspondent was just sort of a byproduct of this program. But the thing I'll leave you with in that job, I spent a month in Iraq during an intense period of combat, and I was really fine. And I was with these young Marines, and who were like half my age almost, and a lot of them didn't know that I was sober. But they were like, God, how'd you deal with what we went through? Because we're like these Marines and we're really tough and we're trained for this. And I didn't tell them this, but I was thinking, you know what? I'm a sober alcoholic. And I can actually tell you, because I have been shot at a lot and I've seen a lot of things happen in my career outside of here. And you know, the funniest thing is, it's really true. The hardest thing I did was live in West LA with my neuroses and alcoholism and try to drink every day. And actually being in Iraq in combat was comparatively easy. And to be a sober member of AA, and this is not a joke, this is really true, to be a sober member of AA prepared me for that and prepared me to try to be of service in that sense as a working journalist there. So this program has done everything for me, and it hasn't helped a lot of people I cared about. You know, I tried to get my mother into it. It never worked. I don't have a good relationship with her. But I love alcoholics. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm glad there's people here today staying sober, because even though I make light of the holidays, it is a tough time for alcoholics, and I can't do this alone, and so I'm glad to be among alcoholics. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.